Reporter Liabo Setho spoke to journalist and author Lucas Ledwaba. He begins by explaining the motive behind writing this book.
It's a South African story. It's a story that has been hidden, although people have known that there are issues like this. So I got very interested in the story when I went through the court documents and read some of the affidavits of the people. I felt it's a story that needs to be told.
How ironic did you find it that this industry that everyone hinges on in terms of revenue and the companies doing well is leaving people into poverty, or has left people with poverty and silicosis or other lung diseases?
South Africa is one of the most developed countries in the world as a result of gold mining. So this came as a result of men like this that we've written about, who worked hard from 1886, even now, building this economy. So you ask yourself, such a rich country, why is it that people who worked hard to build this country were left broken? The industry just did not care. It created huge problems in the so-called labor forwarding areas in Eastern Cape, Lesotho, and most of the SADC region, where most of the men came from. Broken families, children grew up without knowing their fathers. The men who worked on the gold mines were dehumanized. They lived in appalling conditions in the mine hostels. Their dignity was taken away from them. The best years of their lives was taken away from them. Because when they joined the mines, they were 18 years old. And they go back home, they are 47 years old, 50 years old, with almost no compensation. Sickly men, they go back to undeveloped villages where there are no clinics. If there are clinics, there's no proper staff and medication. So I felt this is a story that needs to be told. In 2016, we have to expose this type of horrors.
How easy was it for you to go into the depths of the accounts of the ex-miners who were there? I know that you spoke to a gentleman in Lesotho. You spoke to a widower who also has her husband had died a couple of months earlier. How easy was it, or how difficult was it for them to open themselves up to you? You are not family. You are someone who's going to write a book about them and expose their vulnerability. How was that journey for you?
I'm going to give you an account of what happened with the gentleman you see on the cover of the book, Mr. Zwelendaba Mketi. He's from Kwapala in Flagstaff, in the Eastern Cape. When we first went to see Mr. Mketi, he was very emotional, because he said, you know, people have come here to interview me before, but they are not people who look like me. Each time they come to speak to me, somebody has to interpret what I'm saying. So today I'm glad that people who speak my language, people who look like me, people who understand my culture are here to tell my story. So it was not very difficult for these people, because you remember that most of them are isolated. They feel forgotten, they feel neglected. So when they realize that their story is going to be told, they open up. They want the world to know what they're going through.
I got the sense when I read a bit of the book that most of the people who went home did not understand the sickness that was eating at them. They knew these mine workers about, you know, that there's something wrong in the lungs. I'm sick. Maybe I've got pneumonia. Maybe I've got TB. But they did not understand silicosis. What is your view of how the mine workers or the mine industry is approaching the whole issue of silicosis?
One of the things that we explore in the book is that mine workers were not told why they were being retrenched in most cases. They were just told you are too old to work. Then they only discover years later, when they are back in the village, that they actually have this lung disease, which takes a period of time to manifest, to show, you know, the symptoms and so on. Most of them do not have high levels of education. They do not understand the workings of the law or the Workmen's Compensation Act and so on. So over 100 years, people worked on the mines, they went back home. We don't know how many of them died. There could be hundreds of thousands. In Lesotho, for instance, in the book, the Mine Workers Development Agency reveals that 1,000 people who are on their list, ex-mine workers, died between 2014 and last year. 1,000 people, and that's only those who were registered. Yes. Now these people, they go back to villages where the clinics do not have the proper structures to detect occupational diseases. So you find the death certificate, cause of death, they just say TB, because they don't have the expertise to detect whether it's silicosis or whatever. So it's a tragedy of huge proportions. The mining companies in court in South Africa, the court case is still ongoing as we speak. They are applying what has been termed as delaying tactics. It's believed that they're doing that so that more of these people die than to minimize the cost of the settlement if it's reached.
You're writing about someone, yet because of his background and probably literacy levels, he may not even get to understand the depths of the book or read the book in order to appreciate it further. Did you think of that, and how did you approach that?
We are going to explore the possibility of translating the book into all South African official languages. We can even translate the book into Portuguese, because many ex-mine workers came from Mozambique. We can translate the book into Xitsonga, because in Mozambique they speak a dialect of Xitsonga. In Lesotho, we are going to be launching the book in Lesotho later this year. There's nothing that stops us from translating the book into Sesotho. It's an African story. It would be fitting if it's told also in African languages.
Of Broken Lucas Ledwaba.